But the reality of it is, and this is where you can tell, the true grit of a person, is that if you're willing to fail more times than any other person is willing to try, you will always end up successful.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me on another episode of the Robert Patton Global Podcast. It's been about a month, and so I'm excited to be back in the studio. We had to do a little relocation because we got the warehouse out there being occupied by the workers now. So we're in the back room in the closet, but I'm here with my very special guest from Puerto Vallarta, Adam May. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we met through Jacob from Iridium, who manages a lot of athletes, and he recommended the Renew Stem Cell Medical Clinic in Puerto Vallarta, and then you called me or texted me or something. Yeah. So I went down and got stem cells.
You did?
Yeah, and I did the hyperbaric chamber, which I've never done. Have you done that?
I have. I christened it, so I was the first one that had to test it, make sure it didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Which it didn't, so it works out exceptionally well.
Yeah. What do you think about that, the hyperbaric chamber?
That's what's really interesting. There's a phenomenal story that we tell a lot of people, and I'm not sure if I've told you this one before. But there was a Mexican girl. It wasn't in our community, but it was in that area of Mexico, who had fallen down a well, and it was a very small well, and so she ended up with her ankle by her ear in the way that she was suspended, and she was stuck in there for 3 days.
Oh my God, yeah.
The gravity drop of the blood coming out of the limb eventually caused the limb to pretty much go into a necrotic state, and it appeared as if it was dead. So by the time they pulled her out, it was black. It was not rotted yet, but it was definitely headed those directions. 3 days.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said.
3 days suspended. And so they were going to do a high hip amputation anyway, and one of the doctors said, if we're going to take the leg anyway, and if it's not an active risk to her well-being or her safety, what if we try hyperbaric? And they ended up doing about 60 sessions in total, and she was able to keep the limb. So what it does is that it force feeds pure oxygen into the system. The air that we're actively breathing right now in this room is probably about 25 to 30% pure oxygen. So when you're in that room, and as you remember, you're not just in a sealed, contained space, but you're also wearing that mask.
Right.
That's where that oxygen is being purely, pushed in. So we pull out the pressure of the room, and then you're force-fed pure oxygen. So combination of the pressure, combination of 100%, accelerates all of your healing processes as well as your cells' communications throughout everything. So not only are the new cells that we introduce to your system going to be amplified, but also your existing cells and your existing healing processes and everything about that is going to be amplified. My dad's down in Puerto Vallarta right now watching my dog, and he just got done with shingles. And I said, Dad, you're going in the tube for 4 days. He's like, okay. And sure enough, he's got a full rash on his back, and it's gone now. So it's those types of things. And by using that collected kind of approach of a multifaceted, stem cells, exosomes, hyperbaric chamber, NAD+, Myers-Cocktail, like all of that combined each one of those enhances the other. And then that's where you get, that outcome and that faster outcome.
Yeah.
So
okay, so, and I feel great having done the stem cells. It's kind of subtle, but my elbow is 80%, 90%, and you guys didn't even shoot into my elbow. You remember we ended up shooting into my knee, and then IV, and then the hyperbaric chamber, because I broke the radial head, so you can't really fix that with stem cells.
You can't go into the bone on that,
and maybe it's just time and physical therapy.
Definitely, and that's a lot of what by establishing good networks and provider connections up in the States, that enables us to have really good aftercare processes. I've got a physical therapist, I've got a DO, and I've got 2 other referral types here in the Colorado Springs area alone. A couple more in Denver. And then kind of all periodically throughout the states, all throughout the U.S. And so what that enables us the ability to do is that once you actually return home, you're not just going home blind, you're going back to your provider, who is also in collaboration with us. And we're really ensuring, because it's not an overnight process, that's what everyone hopes for, but it's not an overnight process. That first 1 to 3 months is that decrease of problematic inflammation. 3 to 6 months is where you get into that real restorative regenerative healing, to where we could look at that elbow again and actually see a difference in between a pre and a post image. And that's what's really cool.
I like it. I mean, that's not necessarily why I brought you here to talk, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, you're like going into full salesman mode, and so that's what you do, right?
It's habit because my whole thing that I've been doing since I was pretty much a kid is just finding opportunities for people to be able to have experiences and to be able to have resources. You know, it's always been I've always wanted to be a call this guy. I've always wanted to be that ever since I was a kid. And whether that was because of identity issues or whether that was what, I'm not 100% sure. But I always recognized that if I was a resource to somebody would, reach out and need me for something. And so being able to diversify that and not just have that into one linear thing has really been what's really cool about what I'm doing now as a professional. Because yes, the stem cells is a large component of my life, but that's not my passion. That's not my passion. Is helping people, advocating for people, and getting people to a better position to better their quality of life, whether it be in life, relationships, business, whatever. And a lot of it is gatekeeping from hell, and I describe it in that way because I have enough experiences of how dark and how deep and how bad it can get that I can ward people away. I can say, hey, I will walk you through this door and I'll walk with you, but I can also keep you away from it, and that's kind of what
like the mental hell,
mental, physical, whatever. I've dealt with chronic pain issues since I was 14 or 15 years old.
Why?
Because of so initially, long story short, I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 17, but I first started having problems when I was 15 years old. So my mistrust with the American healthcare system has to do with the fact that I was misdiagnosed for 2 years, and then it led into an improper diagnosis, which led to me losing my leg, all before I was even old enough to have my own autonomy. So I'm 17 years old. Doctor's saying, we made a mistake. We're going to have to take the limb. I'm telling them, you can go fuck yourselves. And my mom's like, can we do it tomorrow? And I'm like, you don't get to chime in on this. Like, I'm 17 and a half. And she goes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I mean, her and I had it out for a while. So while everybody else is organizing their life to start going off into college, start picking out what they want to do, I'm being admitted into a children's hospital with an average age of 6.7, and I'm 17 years old. And I mean, and all my friends around me are formulating their identities and figuring out, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be dead anyway. Because, they told you got a 25% chance of living. And that was before the limb was taken off. And 25% chance of living just from the diagnosis itself. So I had no plan after 19. I wasn't going to make it out of my teenage years. But that even goes back into the problems I had with mental health, which started at probably about 12 or 13. So, what was really interesting about it is when I was told I might die, I already wanted to be dead for the 4 years previous to that. Yeah. So that was actually kind of like a blessing. It was kind of like, seriously? Like, I don't have to kill myself and put a big burden on the rest of my family.
Oh my
like,
God.
I can just die from a natural disease, and then everyone will be sad, but they won't be the same type of sad.
Yeah, because when you kill yourself,
that's golden.
That's like
right.
That's super tragic.
Exactly. So, but then all of a sudden, everyone's like, rah, you can do it, and then you get all that positive motivation around you. And then you have to put on the act. And the act is, I have to survive. And I wasn't surviving for myself. And so you get into that. And then I'm being told that, I have to leave a children's hospital and transition into adult health care. And I've been horrible about that. The moment that I was given the keys and then told, go here for this appointment, I went to that one appointment and I have not followed up since. So, I mean, I broke my hip at a Devil Wears Prada concert when I was 25 years old in a circle pit because I'm 25 years old and I wanted to do a circle pit at a Devil Wears Prada concert.
Wow.
And sure enough, I cracked the femoral head. I have avascular necrosis because of a prednisone steroid that I was on as a kid during that treatment. And so then that's what's caused, the lack of integrity in my bones. And that's actually how I got into the whole stem cell thing. The stem cell thing is, so I have a master's of science, but it's in clinical diagnostics and clinical intervention. I don't want to do medical because I don't trust medical. I know medical, but I let other people do that.
Right.
And that's, I'm being told hip gets replaced, and then I'm told, 2-3 years later, my shoulder needs a total replacement as well. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, because one, I spent too much money on this tattoo, and two, I've got one leg and I can't use crutches if you take my arm. Like, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started getting into other things and kind of, figuring out what other things outside of what I'm being told is beneficial to me. And it goes all the way back. I don't know if you're familiar with a book called The Giver, but I read that book when I was 12 years old, and I highly recommend it to anybody. It's a horrible movie starring Jeff Bridges, but it's a phenomenal book.
That's how it goes.
Always. And but what it is, it's this dystopian where no one has memories of the past, and everyone when they reach the age of 12, everyone is designated a job to the community, but there is always one bearer of every memory of old, and that is I forget what he's called, but everything's black and white, and except for this red apple. And so this kid can kind of see the red apple. And he, once the giver realizes that the kid can see the red apple, that's when the whole book changes. And that's when everything kind of becomes hope driven and more of this, like, we have to have an understanding of the past experiences so that we can, have something fulfilling and valuable to live in, and so forth and so
Color?
on.
I mean,
exactly.
Okay.
Color, pretty much. But the reason why that book resonated so much with me is because I have never wanted an assigned identity. And that's what I've struggled with, especially up until about 25, is that I survived, childhood cancer, and then I get into my adulthood, and then I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, oh, go to college and then get a job. And so I'm, Midwest white kid, 23 years old, got a college degree, and I'm like, okay, what do I do next? So I buy a house, I get married, and I get a graduate degree. Like, I'm checking all the boxes that tell me I'm supposed to have a fulfilling life now because I've done all these things. At no point in time is it anything that I actually want, because I'm just following a template of what I'm told. It took me about 7 or 8 years, a decade of drunkenness. Probably from 15 to 27, I was intoxicated for probably 70% of the time. And when I say intoxicated, I mean fifth a day for years.
Wow.
And a lot of it had to do with managing the body pain and managing insomnia. Those are still two things that I actively deal with daily. I don't drink. I haven't drank in 8 years and stopped on a dime because I really recognize that I don't have a physical addiction to alcohol. I've got an attachment to something that helps me escape the emotional pain that I've dealt with, helps me escape, the physical pain that prevents me from being able to be social or do all these odds and ends and whatever else, and everything else. So stop drinking, and in a matter of 12 months, I create my own company. I go fully independent, and then within a year and a half of that, I buy another company. So that's the reasons why I haven't drank in 8 years, is because I'm like, well, shit, I'm sitting there shame. Well, no, it was more of kind of this, like, okay, this is, I'm now figuring out who I am.
Right.
I tell people that I didn't learn to live until I was about 27. I'd been surviving all the years before. 27 to 33 was really some formative rebuilding years. I'm not going to lie. I took one personal year up on the mountain, Idaho Springs, Colorado, and a couple rough trips to psilocybin kind of set me straight, helped me organize 30 years of chaos, and really started to help me maturate this into something tangible. And when I say this, I mean my self-actualization of what I'm supposed to be actually doing. And it's not just guiding people to stem cells. It's not just, giving people new directions of life. It's actually walking with them. It's actually going through them with the steps. I used to do clinical intervention and therapy. And one of the reasons why I stepped away from that was because I've just gotten so exhausted away from people only calling you when they have a problem. I want to hear about you when you're doing good. I want to walk with you when you're doing well. I want to do the coaching stuff that doesn't require a diagnosis. I absolutely despise the insurance companies of America, because apparently I'm able, the highest billable service is the least amount of time, and it's a clinical intake. So you get paid the most for a 10 to 15 minute conversation. And in that 10 to 15 minutes, you have to come up with a clear diagnosis that's going to be reported to the insurance for the next 6 to 8 months.
In 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes.
And then as the appointment gets longer, they get paid less and less for the incremental time.
Exactly.
That's so it incentivizes.
It incentivizes no one. It incentivizes the problem, because let's get them a diagnosis and then we can get them the meds.
Yeah.
Well, and then also do therapy, but let's make sure you get the psychiatrist in there too, which you have to have diagnosis. So then we'll get you on the meds. And that's that maintenance routine that we've been kind of orchestrated into. And that's what I witnessed. Part of the beauty of being the age that I was at, both in a good, we'll get there in a second. The nurses at the Children's Hospital are like 23 to 27 years old. So, I mean, they're fresh out of school, because every nurse that comes out of school always wants to try to go to pediatrics. That's the dream. I want to work with kids. So, I mean, these girls are not much, and guys, these folks are not much older than I am, all of about maybe 4 to 6 years. And so they're giving me insights about the behind the curtains, what Oz actually looks like behind the curtains of what medical actually is.
Yeah.
And that's why I've spent the last going on 20 years now, helping people understand this is what you're told, this is what you should know, and then decide from there. I'm not saying that medical doctors are wrong. I'm not saying that this system is incorrect. I'm not saying that these resources like insurance and whatever else are not there to benefit you or be a resource to you. But also at the same time, take everything with a grain of salt and always check and balance, because this prescription or this mode of care or this whatever is just standard. It's just like the education system. It's just standard.
It's like a formula. Check the boxes.
Exactly.
If this, then that.
If you have enough of this, we're going to give you that. If you have a positive benefit, then that's what worked.
Right.
I mean, there's even some bipolar. The most effective way to diagnose bipolar is introduce medications, and if the symptoms stop that are specific for bipolar, the client has bipolar.
Wow.
That's how you do it. It's just like, and it's those types of modes and methods that I have understanding and experience of, both from profession and from experience. And now it's my responsibility to get out there and to communicate to people. These are the barriers, these are the blockages, and these are the misunderstandings that are preventing you from being able to achieve whatever it is you want to do, whether it be professional, whether it be personal, whether it be whatever. I mean, me wanting to do the Manitow Incline is no different than me wanting to be successful in business. It's going to require the same characteristics, and it's going to require the same dedications. And so when you start to understand those things about yourself, reaching that point of self-actualization, what is my purpose, who am I, then you can actually insert it more effectively into any environment that you want to. And that's what I've recognized, is that I can insert myself into any professional environment and I can thrive. I just need to understand, what is your goal? What is it that you're wanting to achieve? I'm not exclusively in medical. I'm not exclusively in clinical. It's just what I do, because it's easy, simple, and I live in Puerto Vallarta full time. But a lot of, I got bigger dreams. There's bigger things to do, and now it's just kind of putting, not just pen to paper, but action into place and initiating action. Yeah.
You got to come up with the idea, prepare, plan.
Well, and that's part of the problem, with the podcast that on my podcast, I said that I don't want to cross the street and get hit by a bus with a plan in my pocket. Writing down the plan, yes, is good. It's essential. It's necessary. It has to happen. But you've also got to move into step 2.
You have to start with an idea.
Yeah.
And you have the idea already?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And and your podcast is kind of helping. Is that the idea?
What I would absolutely love to be able to do is to be able to travel around the United States or even the world and just meet people that have been through, I don't want to say horrific or traumatic experiences, but difficult adversities that have prevented them the ability to be successful, yet they have somehow achieved success from their experiences and from their understandings. Finding those unique individuals that have a different perspective of life and a different perspective of what success means to them and how they've been able to achieve that. And by being able to elaborate someone's, concepts or their ideas. And I call myself a innovator of thought, being able to just give you a new perspective and say, do you think this all the way through? If you recognize that this is what's in your way, or this is what's blocking you, then how come this is the one path that you stay so rigid on? What other options do you leave for yourself? When I have patients or folks that are really, really struggling, instead of 360 options, you get 4 options: north, south, east, west. We'll get to 360 degrees at some point, but let's just break it down to 4, and then we can break it down from there. At some point within this category, you've got 90 options that we can position ourselves and look at this. You and I are sitting in the exact same room right now, correct?
Yeah.
Are you and I having the exact same experience?
No.
We're looking at completely different things. We're completely different people. And being able to understand that and being able to incorporate that into thought and idea starts to expand that and really starts to kind of grow and develop that.
Just making it more simple, whatever.
Simplifying, exactly. Because a lot of the times, I know one of my biggest struggles is analysis paralysis, where if I have too many things on the table, I don't know where to start. I know where to start. I just get into this thing of like, okay, well, this will take me 20 minutes. This will take me 2 days. This will, okay, I need to take the dog out. And then it just, that's how the slow roll of lack of success starts. Now, the biggest trouble that I have is that if I'm in static motion, I'm unstoppable. But if I stall, it takes me, a couple more moments to build up momentum. And I know that my experiences are not unique. That's one of the things that I don't think I'm special. I don't think I've done anything, extraordinary. I have people that try to tell me that, and it makes me sometimes uncomfortable because I don't like spotlighting. I don't like praise, because just my natural brain says, you did this one good thing, but you probably fucked up here, 10 different times. Yeah. And those, I've had to challenge that, for a very long time. And really start to kind of get into, I wrote this down. I'm going to pull my phone so I can read the note correctly. But if I went back and fixed all the mistakes I ever made, I wouldn't be the same person I am today. So, that's part of the essential growth. That's part of the necessary effectiveness of this evolution of self. This whole belief that you are supposed to somehow be your identified self for the rest of your life by the time you're 25 makes no sense to me. I don't even think you're an active adult until you're 25. So this whole...
I still don't know what I'm doing exactly.
Oh, exactly. I'm 36 and I just have my parents in town and I'm like asking them, hey, what do I do today? And I'm still texting my dad this morning about like, hey, the hotel, like blah, blah, blah. Like, what do I do? He's like, oh, do it. And so it's just, but again, that's part of that networking of resource. I've got these guys I just met with before I came over here, where now I've got a whole new group of leadership guys that I'm working with. And that's now become a network in and of itself. So just kind of expanding these different networks of different people, not in similar industry. I go from a plumbing group to an underwear group. Yeah. And there's so much overlap in between all of it, because when we scale everything back and we just look at the basics of it, it's who are you, where do you want to be, and how are you going to get there? What's your goal? What do you do this for? You like underwear that much?
I love underwear. It's my favorite thing. I think about it morning, noon, and night. Lingerie.
Right.
No.
So, and so that's where being able to identify what is the purpose for whatever it is that you're doing. What is my purpose for doing what I do? Well, I physically live in Puerto Vallarta, so that when I have individuals that are partly uncomfortable, and I'm not saying you, but partly uncomfortable with coming to Mexico because it's a brand new experience in a brand new country with a brand new, resource, it's a little bit uneasy.
Yeah.
And so by having somebody physically there that says, hey, not only have I witnessed every single patient that's ever been treated here, but I've also been treated myself. I'll sit here and knock out 100 push-ups a day, and I did a shoulder procedure 2 years ago. When I tell that to people, they kind of chirp up and they say, seriously? I'm like, yeah, like it is real. Like what we're doing and what I'm witnessing is real. And I've also figured out that I can do that from anywhere in the world. I'm back here and I'll go right back there on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll meet with some patients, and then I may come back up to the States. I may go to Vegas. I may come over here. I may jump all over the place. And that's what I've always wanted to do. If you really want to get technical, I want a van that I can just live in for like 12 months and then just do a whole tour around the US and just interview and just talk to people and say, what is your experience and how can your experience help somebody else?
Yeah.
That's what my purpose is my experiences are now intended to be learned and understood so that you don't have to experience them and so that you get a quicker path.
Right.
And that's...
Yeah, and you're sharing your experience to prevent other people from suffering, or like they can leapfrog ahead of where they would have been if they have to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I've definitely had those moments where it's like, I wish I would have done this sooner. Or where would I be now if I would have done this at 23 instead of drinking for a decade?
Yeah, I think about that with a lot of things I did in the past.
Exactly. But again, that's where I go back to that quote where it's like, I would not be who I am today if I wouldn't have had those experiences then.
Yeah, if I hadn't been like a complete and utter failure, I wouldn't have had to join the army.
But the reality of it is, and this is where you can tell, the true grit of a person, is that if you're willing to fail more times than any other person is willing to try, you will always end up successful.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I don't say I intentionally create situations for me to fail, but I'm definitely a apologize, not ask permission type of person.
Absolutely.
And I learn from those mistakes, and I will always take ownership of everything. If I know for a fact that I am at fault for whatever it is, that occurred. And that's part of that growth experience, and being able to kind of understand that and getting into, the full understanding of who I am as a person. I always talked about, like, in high school, I would have this ability to kind of insert myself into the lunchroom, and I could sit at any table with any group of people.
Me too.
But I never had like a core group. I had a core group of friends, but they were even like half of them were soccer, half of them wakeboard. So it was just a weird little eclectic group in and of itself there. But it was definitely one of these things. There's another book that I remember as a child, and maybe somebody else does as well, but it was this chameleon that would go around. He'd introduce himself to other animals, and he would change the color of himself to match the animal so that the animal would feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, somebody asked him, goes, "What color are you?" And he's just like, I have no idea.
He's green.
I don't know. No, he's a rainbow by the end of it, because he has a little touch of everything, and that's why he has the ability to connect with everybody. And that was always something that I felt was really cool. Like, I never wanted to have a refined identity. I never wanted to be a football player. I never wanted to be a baseball player. I never wanted to be a theater person. Like, that never like stuck out to me. Like, I absolutely love comics and I know everything about them, but you'll never catch me dead on a Friday night standing in a comic shop. Like, that's just, those folks and I, we just don't click in that way. And, and so it's even things like that. So even the things that I'm passionate about, like, I don't know if they would, I don't know if I'd group together in a social environment because of that.
Yeah, and like stick yourself in that pigeonhole.
Right. And that's even, in my professional work. I've even looked at that where I don't want to be restricted into one mode of care, or even, my position within the organization is technically 1099. So yes, I'm director of patient services for Renew Medical Center, but I'm also a 1099. And so
it's independent contractor,
meaning that I freely kind of do whatever I want, however I want, whenever I want. And because I'm able to, abide by the organization and operate within, what we've created, it operates very fluidly. You wouldn't be able to do that if it didn't have, cohesive leadership and good structure and good internal and external communication. And so by being able to kind of create that, it's now created this environment to where, I do consulting as well for professional organizations, to where the intention is for me to come in to reorganize everything that you're doing and then step away.
Yeah.
And then you come back and resource.
Right.
Because even with like therapy, I used to say that to folks that would come into therapy, like, I don't want you to be here. Like, I don't want you ever reliant on me. If I see you every Monday and you're sitting on Thursday debating on whether or not you need to call me because you're not sure if you can make it to Monday, then we need to figure out how you need to manage more successfully during those periods of time. Because I'm a resource. I'm not the savior.
Right.
And that's where a lot of that autonomy of self comes back. You know, we deal with so many folks nowadays that know where to go to get the answer, but they don't even really know what the question is that they need to ask. And a lot of the times that's where you get the here, take this model, or you get the, kind of the misdirect or the misunderstanding, where people will kind of try like a new concept or a new idea and then it'll fall flat, 2 or 3 weeks later, and whatever else. And
I've been trying something new, and they're peptides. Do
Yeah.
you know anything about peptides?
Enough.
Yeah.
Are you doing it routinely though?
I'm not on a strict schedule. I just do it kind of like, but a few times a week, but are you supposed to, you have to do it at the same time every day?
It comes down to what it is, what it is and what your body's doing and what it's enhancing with, because
I'm just trying to get stronger and like kind of defy age a little bit.
And that's kind of one of those things. One thing that I've always had trouble with, especially with like psych meds and especially with like medications or supplements in general, is that you're only good when you're on them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, but how do I get my body, how do I get myself back to a position to where it's good without them?
Right, like a kickstart, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's I do not take prescription medications unless it's absolutely necessary.
I take Ambien.
I've had sleeping issues for 20 years, and amitriptyline is about the only thing that's been successful.
What is that?
It's actually an antidepressant that at a lower dose, it'll just put you to sleep.
Interesting.
Ambien has its own little issues. If you try to fight Ambien, if you remember,
Start tripping. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I love
that. What's the movie with Role Models, with Sean William Scott and Paul Rudd. When Sean William Scott goes on the camping trip, him and the girl in the tent are trying to fight Ambien. And if you fight Ambien, you can end up sleepwalking and becoming a little bit delirious and even
I've done
hallucinating.
it on purpose, and it's funny. I was about to text Michael Malice one time, and I took my phone out to my wife, and I was like, "Can you read this?" And it was just like gibberish.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend it. I just take it for sleep because I've been having sleep issues for the past decade. I wake up anywhere from 2 to 10 times a night.
Yeah.
Last night was 4, which is decent. Night before was 5. If I drink heavily, or even not even heavily, 2 beers.
Yeah, no, that'll absolutely disrupt the system and how the system operates. That's why the thing about marijuana is that I have a lot of positive benefit from marijuana. It keeps me off prescription medications, keeps my brain organized. I'm part of the 50% that doesn't get dumped into the couch. When I smoke,
Right.
I actually become more functional.
Yeah. You don't
Alcohol just makes me stupid and careless.
Yeah.
But in a fun way. But sometimes, depending on how much internal resentment I have, it can escalate into other directions.
Yeah, and which one you drink.
Exactly. So that was never, and then definitely getting to the age where the recovery time of a hangover just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's
It's
why
not
people,
tenable.
exactly, that's why people after their 30s have to sometimes drink heavier or drink more frequently. It's a hair to the dog. To where if you're just a steady drunk all the time, then you won't have as many, negative effects. Well, what happens when you stop drinking? Well, now all of a sudden you're going to start going into DT and all these other like physical withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
Opiates, benzos, and alcohol can kill you if you do not withdraw from them
Taper.
correctly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but even then, I struggle with what's called inoculated sleep. So it's kind of what you're describing, being on the ambient, or me, heavy smoking an indica before sleep, or even taking a Gumby, whether it be CBD, whether it be CBG. Yeah, CBG.
I just got this new one, and I thought it was more THC, but it's only 2% THC or whatever, and then 2 milligrams of CBG, CBD,
Yeah.
and then a little
Does
bit
it come
of
in a
melatonin.
purple?
Yeah.
And is it a toffee? Like a little taffy kind of?
It's like a gummy. This is a gummy. Oh yeah, this is a gummy.
Okay.
I'll have to show you or whatever. I'll send you a picture. But it is very effective, and I thought because I was taking regular 10 milligram gummy indicas, and it would make me fidgety at night. And this is more deep. I got great deep sleep. I was tracking.
But here's the question: do you dream?
And I'm dreaming.
Okay, that's what's most important.
Yeah.
Because you can only in the healing state is the only state of dreaming. So REM sleep is the healing state of sleep. And a lot of the times when you're in an inoculated state of sleep, whether it be from marijuana or be from a sleeping narcotic, you don't dream because you're crested right at that level 4, level 3, and you're not getting deep healing sleep. So you lay down and you're out for 8 to 10 hours, but your physical body does not get into that healing process.
Do you not wake up in the middle of the night?
Oh, I do. Yeah, quite frequently.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my chart, it goes like up and down. And,
I can, from 9 to 2, I'm solid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, I'll wake up, and depending on where my head goes, if I even think about something, I'm awake.
Oh man.
And to a point to where I've even had opposite hemisphere patients that I'll work with. I'll email somebody in France or Australia.
Yeah.
And be like, "Good morning."
I smoked weed. Sorry, and that sounds like Fight Club shit or whatever. You're like working while you should be sleeping. But I smoked weed from the point when I got out of the army up until, and I still do, but way less. Like I would smoke wake and bake all the way, every couple of hours.
Yeah.
And now I only smoke a few times a day.
Yeah.
But like one hit, like I'm not getting baked.
And that's right. And that's what a functional microdose is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not getting to that point of being inebriated.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing in Colorado about how you can actually determine whether or not is DUI or DWI, whatever, eligible for under the influence of marijuana. Because you can't necessarily do like a street test, like you can for alcohol. And how do you actually know whether your high is actually a disruptive high?
Right.
And there was, in fact, a case where she refused. They took her back to the station. They pulled her blood because she refused. They did, in fact, identify that there was THC in her system. And then she went to her attorney and said, "I'm not fucking high. I wasn't high the whole time. I get that I had marijuana in my system, but I wasn't high."
Right.
And the attorney actually got it off.
Good.
Because it's not like she showed up to court high and said, "You need to prove you're high versus not high." But it was that type of thing where when you get into a more functional resource, I'm what's defined as a psychonaut, so psycho and then NAUT.
Astronaut.
Well, yeah. So, but it's somebody that utilizes like THC, psilocybin, sometimes ayahuasca, even deeper into some of those other things that you could just buy at the store down in Mexico. Can't buy weed.
Ibogaine. Have you ever? I don't know. That's just something I've heard good things about in terms of addictive.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's a resource.
You'll have to get back to me on that one.
Yeah.
But like I would be considered a psychonaut, I guess, at various stages of my life. And it opens your mind to a lot of new ideas, new potentials, yourself.
It actually, what's interesting about the way that you just framed that is I want you to restructure that just a little bit because it doesn't actually open up your mind. Your mind is fully aware of everything at all moments. It releases every barrier and blockage.
Uh-huh.
One thing that I warn people about with psilocybin is that just so that you're aware, you're going to walk into a room with 10 doors and all 10 doors are going to open at the same time.
Nice.
Whether you are ready for that or not. If you're ready for it, it's going to be glorious and it's going to be essential. My trips that I had up on the side of the mountain were not fun.
Right.
And without my background and clinical experience, they are definitely the types of stuff that would break people. Because, I was even having a bad episode where my guy was down in Denver debating on whether or not he needed to hop on his motorcycle and bring me a Xanax. Because I'm like texting him with my face in the sink and I'm just trying to get every fluid out of my body as much as possible. And I'm getting to a point where I've got this little opening of skin right here And I'm like, if I just cut right here,
God.
then I can push it out.
Yikes.
Like I can bleed it out.
The psilocybin, so you could stop tripping.
No,
Oh,
all
the
of the
pain.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Everything that I needed to release or get rid of. I
Interesting.
mean, and that's what I mean. It took me back to when I was 12. I know where everything started. I know exactly where everything started. 0 to 10 was chaotic in and of itself, but there were some specific events that started about 6th grade, and it had to do with friends, and it was. I mean, long story short, I had a plan. I had a trip planned with me and 3 buddies, and I had everything organized. I had everything set. Everything was ready to go. And then all of a sudden, one guy canceled, and then all of a sudden, the other guy canceled, and then another guy canceled, and then somehow those 3 ended up at the lake house together.
Oh my God.
And it was just from that point forward, I kind of recognized, like, if I don't have good enough resources to people, I'm not valuable.
Oh man.
So my canoe trip is not as valuable as so-and-so's lake house.
Oh, that's
And then all of a
horrible.
sudden it became this resentful acceleration is what I call it, where it's like I'm only being driven of, fine fuck you model.
Yeah.
And I've had tremendous success with, personal business
show you
because
type
of that.
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The whole Thanos approach of I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
I have all the characteristics and all the skills of being a good leader, but sometimes I work better as a hired gun. And I'm really starting to recognize how can I do both? How can I, instead of just templating people and saying, here, do this, how can I actually walk them through it and give them that teaching experience? The highest form of learning is teaching.
Mhm.
And to be
you
able
learn
to
so much when you teach.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's and some of what are some of the other quotes I love? Smartest man in the room is the man who knows he's not. If you
Yeah, you
are
don't
the
ever
smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that guys said 100 years ago that still stand so firmly today.
We have a coach right now that we hired to come in. He came in this morning on our Monday morning meeting, Dan Prado. He'll be watching, he'll be commenting, and he's like a huge fan. He lifts us up, that energy. He was a former like collegiate wrestler and Golden Glove boxer. He was on HBO. He won a belt or something back in the 80s, but he's a salesman. He's a fireball of energy, and he just pumps us up, and that's great for he's like a motivational coach. But also as a company, SHEATH.com, you can't just hire everyone and bring them on the payroll full time.
Right.
So we have been looking at consultants to come in, like you said, check out the operation, give us feedback, a plan, lay it out, we execute, and then you're kind of like gone.
Right.
And that is more cost effective for us and the team. We're looking for outside experts,
It gives you more skill set.
What
It
do you
gives you the ability to create the skill set yourself instead of taking, this is what's been successful for us. Here, take our model. Good luck.
Right.
Actually being able to figure out what it is that again, what is the end goal? What is it you're actually trying to achieve?
Money.
Well,
Time,
and that's
freedom,
that's
flexibility.
exactly it.
Well, that's what the money provides.
Well,
of course.
exactly. And that was like I said, the whole comic book thing, like comics have always been a big thing in my life. But in the Avengers movie, Infinity War, they go back in time, they do all that stuff. But Tony Stark actually runs into his dad.
Yeah.
And he asks his dad, hey, what's one piece of advice? And what his dad said is no amount of money would ever buy a moment of time. And I heard that in 2012 when that movie come out? Somewhere around there. Whenever that movie came out, I heard that and I recognized that yes, I have to have money to be able to have freedom of time. But even in my identity as a 1099 independent contractor, I don't have a structure 9 to 5. I mean, you know that. You needed something, you text me at 9 o'clock at night. If I have the answer, why would I table that until 9 a.m. tomorrow? Because that's when the workday starts. No, it takes me 3.5 minutes to answer your question.
I like it.
And then I don't have to deal with it tomorrow.
Pay attention. I'm just kidding.
Take notes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's an ADHD skill set. That has to do with people like, oh, I can't remember where I put stuff. It's like, where stuff, you think about the old tracing hang boards so that people don't lose their tools.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's not only for tools. Do that for your entire life. I know exactly what's in my pockets because the exact same things go in each pocket.
Nice.
Chapstick, keys, wallet, phone.
Yeah.
At my house. Things may look
I always
disorganized.
put everything by the door.
Well, and that's...
Not
do you ever
everything,
forget
but my
stuff?
keys, my wallet, and my phone or whatever is by the door. Do I ever? No, not typically.
I don't, and this is maybe just me, but I don't understand how people forget stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm maybe, and that's part of my OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which has nothing to do with the rituals and habits. It has everything to do with preventing traumatic experience. I know what can happen if you don't do these things in this order. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And that's now what I do, both in motivation, both in consulting, both in my professional work, is I know what this will look like if you don't take care of this now. Whether it be your physical health, your mental health, your professional business, even just little odds and ends about physical health. You're talking about working against the clock. It's, eventually you'll get up. I'm doing the exact same thing. My physical body, because of what I went through during the cancer treatment and everything else afterwards for the next 20 years, my chronological age is 36. My physical body is probably 55. I have got to get those numbers to match at some point, because if I don't, I am going to be in a world of trouble when I'm in my 50s. I've got a hip right now that's fully ceramic that sounds like it needs WD-40 if I move it in, too many weird ways. So there's all kinds of different stuff that I have to be intelligent about, but it's not just for me. It's now purposeful to other people. I've had issues of self-doubt for the longest time because I never felt adequate enough to actually go out there and motivate people because I was still struggling. I've had moments where I'll be doing what's called the major depressive inventory, which is the standard check for
all the shit to be depressed about.
Exactly.
This is why I should be depressed.
And I'm administering it on another person, and I'm answering the same questions, and my answers are worse than the person that's coming into my office to be treated.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that where, and I recognize that's, that's, what's today? 2024? That's like 5-10 years ago, that I was recognizing that my mental health is not good enough to be helping other people. And that's where you start getting self-critical, and you start getting into those self-doubts about, I can't go do motivation. I can't
you can
go
always
do
help people, but go ahead.
Exactly. And that's the framework I had to get in. And that's even now the framework that I'm at now, where it's my whole podcast is Defying Despair, a journey into wellness. It's a journey. It's not, hey, look, I'm at wellness. I've reached wellness and here's how you get. No, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I don't feel great.
Yeah.
I hurt. I don't talk good to myself. Like, there's still a work in progress. But when you show that authenticity, and you don't bullshit people about, this is how wonderful my life is because of these things, it's like, no, it's not. It's a daily struggle.
It's a wild ride, and you need to take it easy on yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
We are doing the best we can, and I would rather just not think than think negative thoughts. And typically, it's weird, the negative thoughts come mostly like right before bed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? I'm trying to go to sleep right now. And why? It's like,
because you have no stimulus around you to disorganize that.
Yesterday I was like, shut the fuck up. I was like, you are not me. And I was like yelling at it because it's like, you're not me. And why are you making me think this negative ass shit? You're feeding me these negative thoughts. I would rather just be like, here now, go ahead. And
that's you actually have to allow that dialogue to exist between those two concepts of your mind. Yeah. Allowing that. I've got the Joker and Batman here on my arm because, the Dark Knight, Heath Ledger said it perfectly to Batman. I can't kill you. Like, you complete me.
Nice.
Like, we are each other. And that's been standing in the comic forever.
Wow.
Because even Bruce has lost some of his support, specifically from one character named Jason Todd, who comes back after Bruce Wayne and tries to kill him because Joker killed Jason, and then Jason ends up being brought back to life because of a Lazarus pit, and then starts to go after Bruce. Like, what the fuck, man? Why is this guy still alive? He killed me. Why is he still alive? Like, this whole not killing thing is bullshit. Like, get past that. And that's been their whole dichotomy of existence, is that when you see those little memes of like, oh, when you're little you want to grow up to be Batman, but once you become an adult you understand the perspective of Joker. It's kind of like you have to have, those exist.
I just watched Joker 2 days ago, the most recent one.
Yeah.
And right before the end scene, when he's coming down the stairs and he's dancing and he's fucking feeling himself, I was like, let me YouTube that. Like, this is a moment, because the rest of the movie he's in pain,
somber,
struggling.
exactly,
just smoking constantly, and you can identify with him. It's hard to identify with.
That
Bruce
was part.
Wayne.
That was the whole thing about that movie, was that by the end of it, you were kind of like, I kind of get where he's coming from. Like,
exactly.
I mean, maybe not, the whole De Niro thing at the end he could have done without, but I totally get where he's coming from, and that's...
He had him... Oh, that's badass, though. Anyway, sorry.
But no, that's... But really, figuring out... there's a show on HBO called Flight Attendant with Kaylee, whatever her last name is, from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, right.
But she does these phenomenal scenes where she will actually regress into her mind, and she will round table each of her characteristics of her personality. Okay. So you'll have like the little angry 14-year-old, you'll have the little slutty drunk one, you'll have the professional mom, you'll have all of them, and she round tables them into a think tank.
Wow.
And says, who's taking over and what do we do in this situation? It's that type of thing. Every demon that I have in my life is now afraid of me and sits at the table that I sit at. I now have the ability to say, what would you do in this situation and how come I should do differently? And if I can't come up with a reason, you getting into these arguments late at night, no, you need to have that voice.
Yeah.
I've said it to people that have struggled with, anxiety-based suicide and depression-based suicide before. You need to leave that as an option. You need to also come up with 9 other options as to why this one doesn't work, but don't deny that that doesn't exist. Because allowing yourself to recognize how deep and dark your mind can go will enable you to actually stay away from that. Because when you don't, and you allow that, the avoidance of the thought, the avoidance of the feeling, that's more often, more often than not, when I've treated suicidal clients, it's been anxiety based. When we think about 3 concepts of death, there's I want to die, I don't want to be here, and I don't give a fuck. Like, this one's depression, the middle one's anxiety. That's the most common one. I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know how to make this stop. The only way to make this stop is to make me stop. That's not a depression thing. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, after that anxiety burns off, then you get dumped back down into the depression. And that's what's always really, really difficult to manage, is that when you're both depressed and anxious, which one is it going to be today? You're just flipping a coin about what's going to happen. And that's part of the consistent, and so when you get into I'm doing Hard 75 right now.
Oh, nice.
To where I've recognized, even after a week of doing it, just the consistency. Every morning I take the dog out at 6 a.m. I bring the dog back to the house. I've got a pier that goes out into the ocean, and there's a bench right in the middle of it. I get my journal, and then I get my book, and I go sit out there. I journal, and then I read a chapter. And then now what I've actually been doing is that I will read a section and knock out 20 push-ups. Read a section and then knock out 20 push-ups. And then by the time I'm done with 100 push-ups, I'm done with my chapter.
Cool.
And then I'm done.
I might implement that.
I'm done with my Hard 75. I'm done by 9 a.m.
Yeah, because you already don't drink.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's...
Hold on, you're supposed to do 2 45-minute workouts, an inside and an outside.
Well, that's my outside one.
Yeah.
And then on later, I have more than enough time to do something else.
I've never done it, but
a lot of the times when people get into these routines, it's more end of day routines. It's more roundups. It's more, and that's where we forget stuff. I recognize now that it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've only done 25 push-ups so far. So if I don't go back home and hammer out those 75, it's going to be 8 or 9 o'clock, and I'm going to be sitting there looking like, man, I'm in my sheath underwear. Like, I got nothing else to do for the day. I really don't want to climb on the floor and do another set of push-ups.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
So that's where, when you have accountability measures that you hold rigid to, even on time orientation, like actually blocking out an hour of your time to sit outside. People don't do that.
Yeah.
But if you actually designate that into your schedule and into your routine, you will do it. And that's now become consistent for me. I don't know the highest weight I've ever been, because I stopped looking at the scale at 306. And I still drank and put on weight after that.
Wow.
So I'm not 100% with the highest weight I ever was. The highest weight I ever saw was 306 pounds. I weighed myself this morning on 178. So how I got there was not Ozempic. It wasn't a lap band. It wasn't some thing. My mind works when I'm mobile, when I'm walking.
Yeah.
And I just started walking.
Nice.
And by walking, I started adding distance, which then added time, which then left my mind just to wander.
Yeah.
And allowing everything that you fight with at night, I allowed to be out there.
Yeah.
So that I could start understanding, where do these originate from and how reliable are they? Are they actually reliable and valid? Reliability and validity have to do with, if I ask 10 people in a room, what do you think about me? Are they going to say the same thing that I think about myself?
Yeah. Probably not.
No, they never do. And I used to, I used to operate a children's residential program. And we would have those kids that would come over and say, none of the kids like me and none of the kids will play with me. It's like, no, one kid said he wouldn't play with you. Have you asked all the other kids?
That's
No.
exaggerating.
Right. And so then
bit.
they go back and then they'll ask them, the next kid they ask, all of a sudden they're playing and they're running off. And it's like little things like that you have to be able to work yourself away from, so that you don't get trapped into these patterns and these routines. We protect ourselves with the patterns that we live in, because that's what's safe. We know how, I knew how to drink the way that I could drink because I had it down to a science. I knew what time I needed to stop drinking. I had a blow and go at one point in time. The little thingy for to operate your car.
Test your blood alcohol level.
No, so that my car would start.
Oh.
But yes, it did test your blood.
Well, no, but I was thinking you were keeping it. You're like, I'm going to keep it between 0.0 this.
No, it was more of, I cannot get past this level of drunkenness, because believe it or not, when you fall asleep, you stop processing. Your metabolism stops processing at the same rate of speed. So you're actually intoxicated the entire time that you're sleeping when alcohol's in your system.
Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes you wake up still drunk.
Yeah.
And the reasons why your body is trying to get rid of it, and why sometimes you can
poison.
You can smell Monarch, from someone's skin, is because it's coming out in every sweat, piss and shit. Like, that's how it comes out, because it's not supposed to be there.
Right.
So, I would have enough of a schedule and enough of a routine and enough consistency that I was still a high functioning alcoholic. I had a master's, I had a full-time job. I was doing substance abuse treatment for other people while I was actively struggling with substance.
Yeah.
And really just kind of doing a disservice to myself and to the people around me. And
I mean, by drinking, yes, but if you're helping
no, it was more of because, again, like I said, alcohol was never the problem. Alcohol was the path to be able to exit this, whether it was physical pain, mental pain, whatever else, and not have to worry about any of that. Now I have to worry about, I said that to this person when I was drunk. I need to go fix that now. Not 15 years ago, my mom did this, and now I've got to... that's what the psilocybin did. Mm-hmm. Psilocybin enabled me the ability to write an email to my mom and my dad together that probably should have gone to them 30 years ago. And previously, for the last 3 decades, I had not been able to communicate because it would only come out as agitation, resentment, and frustration. And being able to recognize that anger was never the problem, alcohol was never the problem, it's core root internal issues that I just didn't know how to manage or deal with. And I can't resent my parents for not enabling the skills, because they're of the generation that tried their best.
Yeah.
and didn't know better.
They definitely didn't know better.
No, I mean, I was born in '87, so like, I am the last, the last set of what's defined as a feral child, a child without internet. Probably about 12 or 13 years old is when we had dial-up. And so that's where things kind of started to shift. And then by the time I get into high school, that's when Facebook kicked off. And then by the time we get out of high school, Instagram, everything else, social media has really started to, I have no desire. I did not go to my 10-year anniversary for high school. I probably will not go back to my 20-year because I can look on Facebook if I need to. And I don't necessarily, I don't interact with those people now. So what do I need to do here? Well, there's still so much in life that could have occurred in 20 years that it would actually be nice to see. What did other people do with their lives? Where are they and where do they want to be? Because 36 and is not old. 60 is not old anymore. I'm telling people now with the stem cell stuff, like if you're in your 50s, it's probably logical for you to think about living into 3 digits comfortably. If you are in your 20s or younger, it is without question that you will live into 3 digits comfortably.
Nice.
And that's a little bit scary because we're from the generation where, like, I saw this the other day. The Frasier house, they're in their 30s. No, not Frasier. Seinfeld. All those people are in their 30s. When I was watching that show as a kid, I thought those people were like 40 or 50 years old.
Even Kramer? Yeah, like Kramer, George.
Yeah,
Elaine.
all of those people are supposed to be in their early 30s. The people in Friends are like early 20s in that show.
Like, are you saying the actors or
No, the characters.
Oh, I see.
The characters in the show are like early 20s on Friends and then early 30s on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And you go back and you look at that, and you even look like a side-by-side image of a person in 1980 that's 60 years old, and then a person in 2024 that's 60 years old. Like
vastly different.
Right. I remember at 15 years old, I'm like, I'd never date a girl over 40. And then you get up to close to 40, and you're like, wait a minute, like, how old are you? Like, you were born when? I've looked at people's IDs and been like, that's not accurate.
Yeah.
Like, you're almost...
That's how it was with my wife when I was like, how old are you? And because we're the same age. And
you two are?
Yeah.
You sure?
Exactly. So...
But no, it is that kind of thing. But when you start living a more fulfilling life and when you start, operating it correctly, like, treat yourself like a houseplant. That's why I say to my partner when she's struggling most is that, hey, 20 minutes in the sun, hydrate, and get yourself physically moving. Like just basic stuff.
Yeah.
When you're depressed, if you can't physically get out of bed, like that's the reasons why people don't pee and poop as much whenever they're depressed. The depression is not sadness. It literally means decrease of functioning. So when we're looking at someone in a depressed state, they lack motivation, they lack direction, they lack energy. They lack the ability to accelerate, and then sometimes they cry. It's like, well, what if they don't cry? Are they just an unmotivated person? It's like, no, that's the deepest, worst depression. That's melancholy. That's the Eeyore from, Winnie the Pooh, where it's just kind of like, oh, hominy, life is as good as it's going to be. And it's like, well, no, that's a choice. You're accepting that. We call that learned helplessness. There's a study where they put this, a horrible study back in the 60s where you could do whatever, to people and animals. But there's a fence and there's a little dog and he hops from one side to the other. They show the dog, you can hop from one side to the other. On this side of it, though, the floor is electrocuted. And when they're training the dog, the floor is not on. But when they turn the floor on, 4 out of 5 of the dogs do not jump over the wall. And the reasons why that is because that animal lacks the comprehension to understand where the pain is originating from, so it simply accepts it.
Whoa.
So the dog will just fall and cower.
Oh my God.
And just say, and whimper and whatever else. You think about these animals that you see on the Sarah McLachlan shows, and they look sad and whatever else. It's like, no, they don't. I mean, yes, they may be sad. I don't know. But they don't know a different way of life. They don't know any different. Type of thing. They're an animal that doesn't comprehend that. We as people, we allow ourselves to exist in specific patterns that are not good for us, but we know how to survive them, so therefore we're okay to be in them. And it's like, that's not how you live life. That's how you survive life. Like I said, it's taken me 33 years to figure out how to actually live. I've only lived the last 3 years. Everything before that was surviving. I was fine creating chaos through the alcohol that I was using, because that was no different than the chaos that I had from the cancer or the chaos that I had from childhood. The familiarity of that enabled me something tangible to where I could fix it. Oh, I have to do this, this, and this, and then I got to apologize here, here, and here, and I got to make amends here, here, and here. Okay, cool. Now I have a task. Now I know what to do. And it's like, how can I take these skills and then also apply them into stuff that doesn't require consequence? How can I do successful things without always creating a life lesson from it? And that's what's been the most fulfilling thing over the last couple years, is that now I'm taking everything I learned in all the chaos, and now I'm doing it in less chaotic environments, and I'm thriving. And life is fulfilling. You know, I come back here. I'm in Colorado right now because we don't have prosthetic services in Mexico. And I love Colorado. So being able to return back to Colorado and drive around, I mean, I just drove through Red Rock Canyon just to get back here. I mean, that I haven't been there in 3 years.
Okay, you didn't take 25?
No,
nice.
It took me the back way, past Cave of the Wind.
That's more fun anyway.
And I love Cave of the Wind. If you guys have never been to Cave of the Wind in Colorado Springs, it's scary as hell. It is truly the dark. I think it's actually like registered as the darkest place in the world.
Weird.
In the back of the cave, there is a blackout area where there is a complete absence of light. Like, hand in front of your face, you can't see a single thing, and it's very unsettling.
Yeah, I was in there and it was unsettling.
Yeah. But just like stuff like that, you know, I've got this whole thing where I've told you about the Manitou Incline. Like, that's just the beginning. You know, I did the ropes course in Dumont, which is a 3-tier ropes course off the side next to the river off of I-70. And I did 7 of those 9. I still need to go back there and do 9 of 9. You know, I want to have like on my little podcast or on a YouTube or something where me with my physical limitations get out there and do normal people shit and show that I'm still fully capable. You know, the whole Stephen Hawkins concept of, as long as I have a strong mind, it does not matter what my physical body is doing. And I will push myself to the point of not being successful because of physical limitations, never because of mental limitations. And that's what keeps me forging ahead and going. So whether that's grit, perseverance, resiliency, however you want to define it, doesn't matter, because it's individually each of those. But now it's initiating action. Like I said, I can put pen to paper and I can come up with a hell of a good plan, but I don't want to cross the street and get hit by a bus with a plan in my pocket. That's a waste of time to myself, and that's a waste of time to everyone else around me.
You think just act, just go, and don't really plan, or what are you saying?
It's exactly what I'm saying. It's no different than what I was saying about the phone call thing. You text me at 9 o'clock, you call me at 9 o'clock with a question, and I'm going to answer it because it is more efficient for me. What are we going to be able to do tomorrow now that you have your answer?
Yeah. Planning. I mean, if you plan, sometimes you'll plan forever and you'll never actually put it into action, and that's one of the problems with planning. So taking action, just take the first step, but you can figure it out along the way, is definitely how I got to where I'm at.
Absolutely.
Now we're at a level where we're trying to get ahead, so we're planning.
The actual name of it's a trans-theoretical model of change, and it's an actual circle of, you know, points of problem, identity, plan, action, relapse, you know, repeat.
Okay.
And a lot of the times you're exactly correct. People get caught in the plan.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like substance related or mental health related or something that has to fix or mend a relationship or something like that. Like, everyone can create a plan, but they can't actually. I can walk to the edge of where I need to jump, but I'm not actually going to jump.
Right.
And that's part of it, is don't stop walking. Why are you hesitating?
Right.
Walk straight there and just go straight off. And that's part of the accountability that you have to have. If you're going to be accountable about the fitness and you're going to be accountable about anything else, you've also got to do the other stuff. And that doesn't mean just scroll through Instagram and find, a good motivational quote and reshare it with a couple other people, or even post it to a story. Like, everybody does that, but do they actually, can you tell me, or I can't even tell you the last 15, positive quotes that I've, posted. I know, there's probably some Marcus in there. There's probably some, who else? I don't know.
Hermosi.
There's everybody. I mean, yeah, just pull something off the Stoic Army, for today, and that's good enough.
That's cool. This one was pretty good though, for people who are trying to achieve high levels of success. The harder it gets, the more you want to maybe quit, but the more you should realize that nobody else is going to go through this shit. Right. So the harder it gets, as long as you're willing to keep going forward, most people are going to stop a long time ago, or once they reach that level of difficulty, it's like a wall. And if you can just break through that wall, you're going to leave everyone else behind type thing. Yeah.
Right.
And you should be happy that it's hard, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of independent personal achievement. And again, kind of going back to what I was saying about the the American education system is notorious for it, where they pull away from individualization. I struggled exponentially with, I didn't technically ever have attention deficit on paper, but I was not great in the classroom. And I often was sent out of the classroom into buddy rooms. Yet somehow in elementary, I had the Presidential Academic Award, which just means you had 100% attendance and you had all A's in elementary school.
Okay.
So somehow I'm sent out of the classroom multiple times a day, but I'm still academically thriving. So is the model of education that we are designed with actually resourceful, or was my independent method of learning more successful?
I mean, showing up is a lot
exactly,
of it.
Yeah. And then even getting into high school, like I don't have a desire to go back to any of my reunions, because I didn't go to school the last year and a half. I sat in a hospital. So I don't even really, I'm the first graduating senior class from the high school that I went to. So there's actually some significance to it.
Interesting.
But like I said, I was only there for half a year. My junior year is when I got diagnosed, and then I was out of school so fast and in medical treatment that a lot of people thought I died.
Oh my God.
And then my sister was just getting annoyed with everybody, and she just perpetuated the the lie.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it was such a swift turn of events that my life was over and I was okay with it. And then by the time 22, 23 came around, my life is given back to me, and then I'm freely told, okay, go live it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Wow.
Like, can I just go back to the coloring stuff? Like,
yeah, that's like institutionalization almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
3 hots in a cot. You think about the homeless population and why crime is going to get bad, November to February. It's like, well, what's petty crime, not major crime, petty crime. Because if I get locked up for 90 to 100 days, that's all of winter. 3 hots in a cot.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of the time you'll see guys in there counting, okay, $25 is grand larceny. So this is, okay, I got to steal all of this. And then they try to run out of the store with $26.17. And it's like, oh, that's good enough. You get locked up because you're a 3P offender.
Not in certain states these days.
No.
Apparently.
And
then the homeless population is just growing, and I don't have the answer, obviously.
No. What's the current method? Let's just ship them to a new city. I mean, that's the Denver population of that problem is all from the COVID folks of LA, because of the grand exodus of California during COVID. Like, the homeless can't thrive if people don't live there.
Yes.
So that's why they all had to, get a bus ticket. Well, what's the next major bus stop after LA? Is Denver.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And that's a lot of what kind of created that, turmoil of the tent cities down in the main thoroughfare of Denver and whatever else. And so, you think back to the method or the model of everything is a pattern. I mean, you can literally lay a template of like 6 different patterns about how things are gonna, it makes sense as to why the world is so, or not the world, but why the United States especially, it makes sense as to why it's so chaotic right now. Because if you go type into Google, what is the average age of a society? It's 175 years. You look at our chronological age right now.
We're way past that.
No, 1776 to current. We are at almost 200 years.
Yeah.
1776.
Oh, the average age. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're
Average
past
age.
the average age, but barely.
Barely.
Okay.
Barely. We're in that window of when you would start seeing,
Decay.
here
system.
in 300 or 400 years, they're going to have sections in, study books about the fall of whatever.
Oh my God.
And that's why people go back to Greece, and that's why people go back to the Aztecs, and they go back to all these cultures and all these societies that are actively thriving, and then say, what the hell happened? Everything was good.
Yeah,
what changed?
Yeah, I don't know. They try to take over the world in
Right.
some cases.
There's all kinds of different stuff. So a lot of, my whole thing is that for me to be most effective in society, I have to have an understanding of who I am.
Yeah.
And that goes back again to Maslow's hierarchy. The base of Maslow's hierarchy is food, water, shelter. After that is, the next necessary essentials. After that is community and relationships. After that is identity of self. And then the peak is self-actualization. You have to know who you are before you can become who you are. And it's like, well, how do I define that? And that's where people have the most trouble. They think that it actually has to be a definition, like I am ...
We're coming up on time, and I don't want you to be late. I want to finish with this. So, like in anger management with the two actors that were in there.
Nicholson and Sandler. Yeah.
Right? He's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I have a job. I'm an accountant or whatever." He wasn't an accountant, like a marketing guy.
Right.
And, no, who are you? And it's like, well, how do you define who you are?
Right.
Then, like, and you guys, I was so answer that. How do you define who you are? And you know what I mean? That
it has to be fluid. You have to scale it back at the most basic method. I'm not a father. I have a dog, that I consider my son. So I'm a dog father. But no, I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm an advocate. I'm an ally. I am and then you just start going from there. It doesn't have
it's
to.
An aggregate of all
exactly.
The things.
You start identifying who you are in the life that you live and what identity fits best with you. I'm a caring, loving person who spreads awareness to others. That's something tangible.
But there could be like 1,000 of those or a million of those people.
Absolutely.
But who are, it's like, well, who are you as an individual?
Well, and that's where you start adding some of those individual pieces of yourself, and you start defining that. I am someone, and then that's when you start getting, and again, taking that refined model of north, south, east, west, and how do we get it to 360-degree option?
So just start with 4.
Exactly. And then building it from there. We want to go to the full thing and say, okay, what are the 360 characteristics of myself?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, what are the 4 basic characteristics of yourself?
Well, now I would want to say, what is, one, who am I? It's like one thing, and it's not one thing, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, is that when you start to learn, that goes back to what I was saying about 25 having a refined identity of yourself. No, you are ever evolving. I mean, they even talk about how adult men don't have a refined, developed personality until the age of 43. And so what's occurred in those other 20 years, is lost to be known. And a lot of it,
figuring it out.
Well, a lot of it is assumed identities into professional roles and into some type of a relationship, fatherhood or whatever.
Right.
You don't actually, and that's why folks go into some level of a midlife crisis. Oh, they got to get the bike that they never had, or the truck that they always wanted, or so forth and so on. It's like, those are starting to exhibit little characteristics of yourself, but that doesn't deny that you're also still a father, a professional person, here, and here. And that's where you start to kind of build it and evolve it and grow it and cultivate it. And then that's where you reach that point of self-actualization of, this is what my purpose is. My purpose was, I survived cancer, not so that I could kill myself with alcohol. That's why I stopped drinking. Because what I was doing after surviving cancer, I got Valkyries up here, which were the they worked with Odin, And any warrior that died in battle, the Valkyries would come in and take their soul.
Oh, yeah.
And then take them back to Valhalla for the Great War. And so what this represents is the people that lost their battles with cancer, because I've had survivor's guilt for 20 years because I got a whole plethora of people that probably would have done far better and amazing things had they still been living. And somehow I ended up still alive.
Wow. Yeah.
Any other person that I've known with the diagnosis that I had is not living at this moment right now. So why is it I'm still here? You know, I've had those challenging moments at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I don't know why I'm still here. That means I need to answer that question.
Yeah.
I'm
action.
demanding that answer from who? Like, I don't go to church. I'm agnostic at best. Like, who am I demanding that answer of? I'm the one that has it. You're the one that has it. You've got to get in there, and instead of getting agitated and angry at yourself, actually understand what is that voice saying to you. Because if you're not actually capable of it, then it is a voice of reason. If you are actually capable of it, and this voice is nothing but to challenge you against it, then work harder. That's where the Find Fuck You model actually is successful. Use that against yourself instead of using it against other people, and then you're going to thrive, and then you will naturally find out who you are. And that's the beauty of it.
Adam May, my man, spitting knowledge over here. That was great. I was a little bit like hearing something in the background at first, so I had to like shift my ear, whatever these are called, headphones. And then I was able to like focus in more. I was like, anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anything else? What's the name of your podcast again?
Defying Despair, A Journey into Wellness. I have one episode posted right now on Spotify and Buzzsprout and a bunch of other stuff, but Spotify is the easiest way to find it.
That's the one you sent me, right?
It's the one I sent you, yeah.
That's a good one. It's like 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. Short and
so
sweet. I'll start getting some more content up there, about in the 20 to 30 minute range. Maybe even longer. When we start getting into the interview processes with some folks, that'll be more towards the 40 to 60 minute length.
Yeah.
So really just kind of evolving that and building that. You know, I'm doing it from scratch, doing it myself, and just kind of in the template model right now of trying to get past my own barriers to find success with that. And
I think your story can help a lot of people. And it's very inspirational.
I've been told that, so I got to start utilizing that more efficiently and effectively. So I appreciate that. I appreciate it a lot.
I try to bring people on here to hear their stories, and I have done some things that, you know, built this company, and I feel like if I can do it, you can do it is kind of my message. But we talk about principles of success and how to apply it to your life and use it to achieve something. And so this was perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you all. And I'll be back soon-ish. Namaste.